From iconic giants to once promising newcomers, some motorcycle brands are hanging by a thread. You won't believe which names are barely surviving, and a few might shock you. Here are 10 motorcycle brands on the brink of collapse. Number 10. Harley-Davidson. For generations, the name Harley-Davidson has been synonymous with American motorcycle culture. The throaty rumble of a V-twin engine, the allure of the open road, and the rebellious spirit that defined entire eras. But beneath the chrome and leather-clad nostalgia lies an alarming reality. The motor company is in serious trouble. Once an unstoppable force that dominated the U.S. motorcycle market with nearly 60% share, Harley now finds itself fighting for relevance in a rapidly changing industry. Sales have declined nearly every year since 2014, with 2023 marking some of the worst numbers in decades. The core problem? Harley's traditional customer base is literally dying off. The average Harley rider is now in their late 50s, while younger generations show little interest in the brand's expensive, heavy cruisers. Even more damning, Harley's much-hyped More Roads to Harley-Davidson turnaround plan has largely failed to gain traction, leaving analysts questioning whether this American icon can adapt quickly enough to survive. The financial numbers paint a grim picture. Harley's stock price has languished for years, underperforming the broader market by a staggering margin. The company has been forced to close factories, including its historic Kansas City plant, and has laid off hundreds of employees in repeated restructuring efforts. Perhaps most telling is the shrinking dealership network. Many longtime Harley stores have closed as foot traffic dwindles. The brand's attempt to pivot with the Livewire electric motorcycle, now spun off as a separate company, has been commercially disappointing, while its adventure bike, the Pan America, though well-reviewed, hasn't moved the needle enough to offset declining cruiser sales. Even Harley's traditional stronghold, the heavyweight motorcycle segment, is under siege, with Indian Motorcycle gaining ground and European brands like BMW eating into market share. The uncomfortable truth is that today's riders, especially millennials and Gen Z, view Harley as their father's or grandfather's motorcycle brand, expensive, impractical, and stuck in the past. Yet all may not be lost. Harley still possesses one of the most powerful brands in motorcycling, with unmatched name recognition and a fiercely loyal, if aging, customer base. The company is making belated but genuine efforts to appeal to new demographics, developing smaller, more affordable models like the X440 for Asian markets and the upcoming Bronx Street Fighter. There's also potential in Harley's burgeoning parts and accessories business, which remains highly profitable. However, the fundamental challenge remains cultural. Can Harley evolve its image and product lineup enough to attract new riders without alienating its traditional base? The company's recent moves suggest leadership understands the urgency, but the clock is ticking. With electric startups gaining traction, ADV bikes booming, and young riders favoring different styles, Harley-Davidson stands at a crossroads. One path leads to reinvention and renewed relevance, the other to becoming another cautionary tale about what happens when iconic brands fail to adapt to changing times. The next 5 years may determine whether Harley remains a living legend or becomes a museum piece. Number 9. Indian. Once a titan of American motorcycle culture, Indian Motorcycle, alongside its longtime rival Harley-Davidson, is facing an existential crisis. These two brands, which once dominated the roads with their iconic V-twin engines and fiercely loyal followings, are now struggling to adapt to a rapidly shifting market. While Indian made a strong comeback after its 2011 revival under Polaris, capturing younger riders with modern designs like the FTR 1200 and Chieftain Elite, recent financial and strategic missteps have left the brand on shaky ground. Polaris reported a staggering 20% drop in sales for 2024, with the discontinuation of the FTR lineup, a bike once hailed as a beacon of innovation, signaling deeper troubles. The brand's inability to sustain momentum in a market increasingly dominated by electric bikes and adventure touring models has left it vulnerable, and without a clear path forward, Indian risks fading into obscurity just as it did in the mid-20th century. The demographic time bomb ticking beneath Indian and Harley-Davidson is perhaps their greatest threat. Harley's average buyer is now over 50, while Indian's sits at 45-50, a slight edge, but not enough to secure long-term viability. Younger riders, drawn to affordability, technology, and sustainability, are turning away from traditional cruisers in favor of brands like Triumph, Ducati, and electric startups. Indian's attempts to modernize, such as the liquid-cooled Power Plus 112 engine and advanced safety features like blind spot monitoring, have been commendable but insufficient to reverse the tide. Meanwhile, Harley's struggles to attract Gen Z and millennials with smaller, cheaper models highlight a broader industry crisis. Legacy brands failing to resonate with the next generation of riders. Without a radical reinvention, Indian could soon join the ranks of forgotten motorcycle giants like Excelsior and Henderson. What's next for Indian Motorcycles? The brand's fate hinges on its ability to pivot, whether through electrification, sharper pricing, or a reinvigorated marketing strategy that speaks to young adventurers. While Indian has made strides in community engagement, partnering with indigenous organizations and sponsoring rides for social causes, these efforts alone won't save it. The motorcycle landscape is evolving, and Indian must evolve with it, or risk becoming a footnote in the very history it helped create. For now, the once mighty rival to Harley stands at a crossroads, its future uncertain in a world that's leaving traditional cruisers behind. The clock is ticking, and if Indian can't bridge the gap between its storied past and an electrified, tech-driven future, it may soon be remembered not as a phoenix that rose from the ashes, but as a relic of a bygone era. Number 8. KTM. KTM, the Austrian powerhouse known for its ready-to-race philosophy, has long been a dominant force in off-road and performance motorcycles. From dominating Dakar rallies to producing some of the most thrilling street bikes like the 1290 Super Duke R, KTM built a reputation for pushing boundaries. But now, cracks are beginning to show in their armor. Sales are slipping, financial reports are raising eyebrows, and their once loyal fan base is starting to question whether KTM can keep up in an increasingly competitive market. While they still command respect on the racetrack, the reality is that KTM's future is far from secure. Their heavy reliance on niche markets, premium pricing, and failure to break into high-volume regions like Southeast Asia could be setting them up for a disastrous downfall. KTM's parent company, Pierer Mobility, has been struggling with inconsistent profits, and the brand's aggressive expansion may be backfiring. Their partnership with Bajaj in India was supposed to open doors to massive emerging markets, but despite popular models like the 390 Duke and RC390, KTM hasn't been able to compete with Japanese brands on price and reliability. Meanwhile, their push into electric motorcycles, like the Freeride EXC and upcoming E-Duke, has yet to gain real traction, especially as competitors like Harley-Davidson and Zero Motorcycles already have a head start. Adding to the pressure, KTM's supply chain issues and rising production costs are eating into profit margins. The brand has always prided itself on cutting-edge engineering, but that innovation comes at a steep price, both for the company and the consumer. While die-hard riders may still swear by KTM's adrenaline-pumping machines, the average motorcyclist is increasingly turning to more affordable, practical options from Honda, Yamaha, and Kawasaki. If KTM doesn't find a way to balance performance with accessibility, they could soon find themselves squeezed out of the market entirely. Perhaps the most alarming sign of trouble is KTM's slipping dominance in off-road racing, the very arena that built their reputation. While they still perform well in events like Dakar and Motocross GP, rivals like Honda and GasGas, ironically now owned by KTM's own parent company, are catching up fast. Even in street racing, KTM's RC series has struggled to dethrone Japanese supersport bikes in terms of sales and track performance. Beyond racing, longtime fans are growing frustrated with KTM's notorious reliability issues, problems that brands like Yamaha and Suzuki rarely face. When a premium-priced bike requires frequent repairs, even the most passionate riders start looking elsewhere. The bottom line? KTM is at a crossroads. They can either double down on their high-performance, race-bred identity and risk alienating mainstream buyers, or they can pivot toward more affordable, reliable models to compete with the Japanese giants. But that might mean sacrificing what made them special in the first place. Without a clear strategy, KTM could go from being a legendary name in motorcycling to just another struggling brand fighting for survival. The next few years will be critical. Will KTM adapt and thrive, or will they become another cautionary tale in the motorcycle industry? One thing's for sure, the clock is ticking. Number 7. Norton. Norton Motorcycles, once a crown jewel of British engineering, found itself on the brink of collapse in 2020 amid a whirlwind of financial scandals, broken promises, and shattered trust. The brand, which had been resurrected in 2008 by entrepreneur Stuart Garner, quickly became synonymous with controversy. Garner's tenure was marked by unpaid taxes, a $300,000 debt to HMRC, and a shocking pension scandal that saw over 200 retirees lose their life savings, $14 million funneled into Norton under fraudulent pension schemes. Garner, who served as the trustee for these funds, claimed ignorance, but the UK Pensions Ombudsman ruled he acted dishonestly, ordering him to repay the money, a demand he dodged by filing for bankruptcy. The fallout was catastrophic. Customers who'd paid deposits for bikes like the V4 Superbike were left empty-handed, and the company's reputation lay in tatters. The collapse wasn't just financial, it was a betrayal of Norton's storied legacy. Founded in 1898, Norton had dominated Isle of Man TT races and built iconic machines like the Commando, blending performance with timeless design. But under Garner, the brand became a cautionary tale. Investigative reports revealed lavish spending on Aston Martins in Donington Hall, a mansion doubling as Norton's headquarters, while employees and suppliers went unpaid. Garner's desperate attempts to raise funds, including a failed $1 million Crowdcube campaign, only deepened suspicions. Industry insiders like journalist Roger Willis called his schemes bullshit, and by 2020, Norton was in administration, its assets up for auction. The brand's survival hung by a thread, its fate a stark reminder of how quickly pride can turn to ruin. Yet, against all odds, Norton's story didn't end there. In 2020, Indian automotive giant TVS Motor Company swooped in, acquiring Norton for $16 million and pledging $200 million to revive it. Under TVS, Norton has cautiously rebuilt, addressing past failures like the Commando 961's recent safety recall while planning 6 new models by 2025. The focus is now on premium, globally competitive bikes, with a sub-500cc Roadster poised to challenge Triumph and Royal Enfield. But the scars remain. The pension victims, though partially compensated, lost years of security, and Garner's 2022 guilty plea for illegal pension investments, resulting in a suspended sentence, left a stain on Norton's history. The brand's second chance is a testament to its enduring appeal, but its near collapse serves as a brutal lesson in the cost of greed and mismanagement. Number 6. Mitsubishi. Mitsubishi Motors, once a powerhouse in the automotive world, is now teetering on the edge of collapse, and its motorcycle division isn't faring much better. While Mitsubishi is better known for its cars, its foray into motorcycles has been plagued by the same issues dragging down its auto business: lack of innovation, shrinking market share, and financial instability. The company's U.S. operations have been particularly hard hit, with sales plummeting from a peak of 346,000 vehicles in 2003 to a dismal 54,000 in 2009. This downward spiral has left little room for investment in niche markets like motorcycles, where competition from brands like Honda and Yamaha is fierce. Mitsubishi's inability to carve out a distinct identity, whether in cars or bikes, has left it struggling to stay relevant. Instead of focusing on a unique selling point, like Subaru did with all-wheel drive, Mitsubishi spread itself too thin, trying to compete in every segment without the resources to back it up. The result? A brand that's now a shadow of its former self, with its motorcycle division barely clinging to life. The financial woes are impossible to ignore. Mitsubishi recently slashed its net profit forecast by a staggering 76%, down to just $226 million for the fiscal year ending March 2025. This freefall is due to a combination of factors: rising supplier costs, lackluster sales in key markets like Southeast Asia, and the crushing weight of U.S. tariffs on imported vehicles. With its entire U.S. lineup subject to a 25% tariff, Mitsubishi has frozen shipments to American dealers, a desperate move to avoid further losses. For a motorcycle division already operating on slim margins, this kind of financial instability is a death knell. The company's midterm Challenge 2025 plan talks big about electrification and sustainability, but with most of its resources funneled into salvaging its car business, motorcycles have been left in the dust. Mitsubishi's failure to adapt to changing consumer preferences, whether in electric bikes or high-performance models, has left it lagging far behind competitors who've embraced innovation. So, is there any hope for Mitsubishi's motorcycle division? The odds aren't good. The brand's recent strategy has been all about survival, not growth. While Mitsubishi talks about launching 16 new models, including 9 electrified vehicles by 2025, none of these seem to include motorcycles. Even its partnership with the Renault-Nissan alliance, which could have provided a lifeline, has done little to revive its two-wheeled ambitions. Meanwhile, rivals like Harley-Davidson and Ducati are doubling down on electric and premium bikes, leaving Mitsubishi in the dust. The sad truth is that Mitsubishi's motorcycle division is likely headed the same way as its failed car models, discontinued and forgotten. Unless the company makes a radical pivot, focusing on a niche it can dominate, its bikes will soon be nothing more than a footnote in automotive history. For now, the countdown to collapse continues. Number 5. Moto Guzzi. For nearly a century, Moto Guzzi has been a symbol of Italian motorcycle heritage, crafting machines with soul-stirring character and unmistakable engineering. The brand's iconic transverse V-twin engines, with their distinctive rumble, have earned a cult following among riders who value mechanical personality over raw performance. But in today's hyper-competitive motorcycle market, charm alone isn't enough, and Moto Guzzi is facing an existential crisis. Despite recent efforts to modernize, including the updated 2025 V7 lineup with ride-by-wire throttles, improved electronics, and a new V7 Sport variant, the brand remains stuck in a dangerous limbo. Too traditional to attract new riders, yet not quite premium enough to compete with the likes of Ducati and Triumph. The numbers tell a troubling story. Guzzi's U.S. dealer network has been shrinking for years, leaving many owners without local support, while Piaggio, Guzzi's parent company, has faced financial turbulence, casting doubt on long-term investment in the brand. The 2025 models, though welcome, still lag behind competitors in key areas. While rivals offer cutting-edge features like adaptive cruise control, advanced rider modes, and seamless smartphone integration, Guzzi is only now catching up with basics like cornering ABS and traction control. The V85 TT, Guzzi's adventure touring hopeful, has been criticized for its underwhelming power delivery and weight distribution, making it a tough sell against segment leaders like the BMW R1250 GS, or even the more affordable Yamaha Tenere 700. Similarly, the V7, while dripping with retro appeal, struggles to justify its price when rivals like the Triumph Bonneville and Kawasaki W800 deliver more power, better handling, and stronger dealer networks. The question isn't just whether Moto Guzzi can survive, it's whether it can evolve without losing what makes it special. The brand's loyalists adore its quirks: the thumping V-twins, the shaft drives, the old-school simplicity. But nostalgia doesn't pay the bills, and younger riders demand modern performance, reliability, and tech. Piaggio's recent financial injections suggest there's still hope, but Guzzi needs more than just minor updates. It needs a bold reinvention. Imagine a high-performance Guzzi with a liquid-cooled V-twin, a lightweight chassis, and state-of-the-art electronics. A bike that honors the brand's heritage while finally stepping into the 21st century. Without such a leap, Moto Guzzi risks becoming a museum piece, another cautionary tale in an industry that has already claimed legends like MV Augusta and Laverda. The eagle emblem has weathered storms before, but this may be its greatest challenge yet. Will Guzzi rise to the occasion, or will it fade into history? Number 4. Hyosung. Hyosung, once considered a rising star in the global motorcycle market, is now fighting for survival, and its downward spiral has been years in the making. The South Korean manufacturer burst onto the scene in the early 2000s with a lineup of budget-friendly, mid-sized motorcycles that initially captured the attention of cost-conscious riders. Models like the GV650 Cruiser and the sporty GT250R offered decent performance at an attractive price point, making Hyosung a viable alternative to pricier Japanese bikes. For a brief moment, it seemed like the brand had real potential, especially in Western markets where riders were eager for affordable options. However, that early momentum quickly fizzled out as Hyosung failed to address critical flaws in its business strategy. Unlike competitors such as Kawasaki and Honda, which poured resources into research, development, and brand loyalty, Hyosung remained stagnant, relying on outdated designs and technology. The core of Hyosung's problems lies in its inability to keep up with the demands of modern riders. While other manufacturers were refining fuel injection systems, integrating advanced electronics like traction control and ride modes, and experimenting with lightweight materials, Hyosung's bikes remained stuck in the past. Many of its models still use carbureted engines, a technology most brands abandoned years ago, and its designs lack the bold, contemporary styling that today's consumers expect. Even worse, the brand has been plagued by persistent quality control issues, with owners reporting everything from electrical gremlins to premature engine wear. These reliability concerns have tarnished Hyosung's reputation, making it a risky choice for buyers who want a bike that won't constantly need repairs. In emerging markets, where affordability is crucial, competitors like Bajaj and Royal Enfield have seized the opportunity, offering more reliable and feature-packed machines at similar price points. As a result, Hyosung's sales have plummeted, dealerships have dropped the brand, and its presence in key markets has all but disappeared. Looking ahead, the future for Hyosung appears grim unless drastic changes are made. The motorcycle industry is rapidly shifting toward electric vehicles, and while brands like Harley-Davidson, Zero, and even startups like Damon are investing heavily in electric powertrains, Hyosung has shown no signs of keeping pace. Without a clear strategy for electrification, the company risks becoming completely obsolete within the next decade. Even if it were to pivot now, the financial and logistical challenges of developing competitive electric bikes would be immense, especially given its shrinking revenue and lack of investor confidence. Some industry analysts believe that Hyosung's best chance for survival would be a buyout or merger with a larger automotive player, but so far, no suitors have stepped forward. For now, the brand continues to limp along, producing forgettable models that few riders are interested in. Unless Hyosung undergoes a radical transformation, revamping its entire product lineup, improving quality, and embracing new technology, it's only a matter of time before it joins the graveyard of failed motorcycle manufacturers. Number 3. MV Augusta. MV Augusta, the storied Italian marque synonymous with racing glory and hand-built exotics, is fighting for its life. Once an unstoppable force in Grand Prix motorcycle racing, amassing an astonishing 75 world championships, the brand now finds itself on shaky financial ground, struggling to stay relevant in an increasingly competitive market. Despite producing some of the most achingly beautiful and technically advanced motorcycles ever made, like the iconic F4 Superbike and the razor-sharp Brutal Naked series, MV Augusta has been trapped in a cycle of near collapses, ownership changes, and failed revivals. The company has declared bankruptcy multiple times in its 80-year history, and while recent investment from Pierer Mobility AG, KTM's parent company, provided temporary relief, deep-rooted issues remain. With slow production, a shrinking dealer network, and rivals like Ducati and Aprilia pulling ahead, MV Augusta's future hangs by a thread. Will this legendary name survive, or is it destined to become a footnote in motorcycle history? The problems plaguing MV Augusta run deep: bad management, a failure to modernize, and an identity crisis in a market that demands both performance and practicality. Unlike Italian competitors such as Ducati, which thrives under Audi's ownership, or Aprilia, backed by the industrial might of Piaggio, MV Augusta has spent decades lurching from one financial crisis to another. Even Harley-Davidson's brief ownership in the late 2000s failed to stabilize the brand. Today, MV's struggles are compounded by tightening emissions regulations, which have forced it to withdraw models from key markets like the US and Europe. Worse still, its bikes, while engineering marvels, are priced at stratospheric levels, often costing twice as much as comparable machines from Japan or even other European brands. Add in notoriously long wait times for parts, a sparse dealership network, and a reputation for being boutique rather than mainstream, and it's clear why MV Augusta remains a brand admired from afar but seldom owned. Is there a path forward, or is MV Augusta doomed to fade away? The recent partnership with KTM's parent company offers a glimmer of hope, providing much-needed financial backing and access to a global distribution network. Rumors suggest that MV is developing a new 950cc platform, possibly sharing technology with KTM, which could finally make its bikes more accessible to a broader audience. But the brand must act fast. It can no longer rely solely on ultra-exclusive, low-volume machines that appeal only to collectors. To survive, MV Augusta needs to strike a delicate balance, preserving its heritage and craftsmanship while expanding its lineup, improving reliability, and making its bikes easier to own. If it succeeds, MV could reclaim its place among motorcycling's elite. If it fails, this once great mark may vanish forever, leaving behind only memories of its past dominance and the haunting beauty of its machines. The clock is ticking. Number 2. Confederate Hellcat. The Confederate Hellcat wasn't just a motorcycle, it was a statement, a defiant middle finger to convention, a rolling sculpture of raw power, and a symbol of American audacity in an industry dominated by tradition. Born from the mind of Matt Chambers in the mid-1990s, Confederate motorcycles set out to redefine what a motorcycle could be. The Hellcat, one of its most infamous models, embodied this philosophy with its brutalist design, monstrous V-twin power, and an aura of exclusivity that made it the two-wheeled equivalent of a fighter jet. Early models like the F-113 Hellcat were mechanical marvels, hand-built in Alabama with aircraft-grade aluminum frames, carbon fiber bodywork, and S&S engines that roared with unapologetic fury. Celebrities like Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt were early adopters, drawn to the bike's outlaw mystique. But beneath the glamour, Confederate was already showing cracks. With price tags soaring well over $100,000, production delays, and a business model built on scarcity rather than scalability, the Hellcat was always more of a passion project than a sustainable product. By the 2010s, the cracks became chasms. The Hellcat evolved, but not necessarily for the better. The X132 Hellcat introduced a radical billet aluminum engine co-developed with S&S Cycle, a technical masterpiece, but one that came with astronomical production costs. Meanwhile, Confederate's attempts to expand the Hellcat lineup led to identity crises. The Speedster variant, designed by Ducati alum Pierre Terblanche, traded the original bike's aggressive stance for a stretched-out cruiser-like posture that baffled purists. Even worse, later models like the Hellcat GT borrowed heavily from Harley-Davidson's parts bin, using the FXDR's frame and engine, a shocking move for a brand that once prided itself on independence. Where was the rebellious spirit that defined early Hellcats? The brand's financial struggles forced compromises, and each new model felt like a step further from its roots. Buyers who once saw Confederate as the pinnacle of bespoke motorcycling began to lose faith. The Hellcat, once a symbol of uncompromising performance, was becoming a cautionary tale of overpromising and under-delivering. The final death knell came with Confederate's rebranding as Combat Motors, an attempt to shed its controversial name and Southern imagery, but one that only accelerated its decline. The Hellcat name lingered, but the soul was gone. Production numbers dwindled to a trickle, and the few bikes that rolled out lacked the fire of the originals. Today, the Confederate Hellcat exists mostly as a collector's curiosity, a rare, expensive relic of a brand that burned too bright, too fast. Its legacy is complicated, a masterpiece of design and engineering, yet a failure in business. The Hellcat proved that even the most visionary motorcycles can't survive without a viable strategy. For enthusiasts, it remains a bittersweet what-if, a glimpse of what American motorcycling could have been if ambition alone were enough to keep a brand alive. Number 1. Bimoda. Bimoda, the once revered Italian motorcycle brand, is dangerously close to fading into obscurity, a tragic fate for a company that once stood at the pinnacle of performance and innovation. Founded in 1973 by Valerio Bianchi, Giuseppe Mori, and legendary designer Massimo Tamburini, Bimoda earned its reputation by taking powerful Japanese engines and wrapping them in handcrafted Italian chassis, creating machines that were faster, sharper, and more desirable than anything else on the road. The brand's early success was built on racing glory, including John Eckerold's 1980 350cc World Championship victory on a Bimoda, cementing its place in motorcycle history. But despite these triumphs, Bimoda's story has been one of constant struggle. Bankruptcies, ownership changes, and failed revival attempts have left the company a shadow of its former self. The closure of its historic factory in Giacaglia and the relocation to a small Swiss warehouse in 2023 was a humbling moment, signaling just how far the mighty had fallen. Even Kawasaki's 49.9% stake in 2019, which initially sparked hope, hasn't been enough to reverse the decline, leaving Bimoda's future hanging by a thread. The company's downfall can be traced back to a series of ambitious but disastrous missteps, none more catastrophic than the V-Do, a bold but fatally flawed project that nearly destroyed Bimoda overnight. Intended to be the brand's first fully in-house motorcycle, the V-Do's innovative 500cc two-stroke engine was plagued by fuel injection problems, leading to recalls, lawsuits, and ultimately bankruptcy in 2001. This disaster set a pattern that would repeat itself. Brief moments of brilliance overshadowed by financial turmoil. Even recent efforts like the Kawasaki-powered BB3 and the KB998 Rimini World SBK race bike have failed to reignite the brand's fortunes. While the KB998's return to World Superbikes in 2025 with riders Alex Lowe's and Axel Bassani is a nostalgic nod to Bimoda's racing heritage, it's a far cry from the brand's golden era. The harsh reality is that Bimoda no longer has the resources or infrastructure to compete. Its survival now depends entirely on Kawasaki's willingness to keep it alive. Without a major breakthrough, a truly game-changing model, or a deep-pocketed investor, Bimoda's days as a functioning manufacturer may be numbered. What makes Bimoda's potential collapse so heartbreaking is the sheer weight of its legacy. This is a brand that gave the world the Taisi, with its radical hub-center steering, and the SB8R, a snarling superbike that pushed engineering boundaries. For decades, Bimoda represented the pinnacle of Italian motorcycle craftsmanship, a boutique builder that dared to be different. But passion and innovation alone can't sustain a business, and Bimoda's chronic financial instability has left it unable to adapt to modern market demands. Today, the brand survives on nostalgia, limited edition releases, and the loyalty of a dwindling group of enthusiasts. Unless Kawasaki steps in with a serious long-term commitment or another buyer emerges, Bimoda will likely join the ranks of defunct motorcycle brands, remembered fondly but no longer producing the machines that made it famous. For now, the name lives on, but the clock is ticking. If nothing changes, Bimoda's story may soon end not with a triumphant comeback, but with a quiet, unceremonious exit from the industry it once helped define. Think these 10 brands are hanging by a thread? They're just the tip of the iceberg. The real shakeup in the motorcycle world is just getting started. Before you commit to that next big purchase, make sure the brand you're eyeing isn't about to vanish. Click on the next video, because what's coming could change the game completely.